Welcome back, everybody, to the Classic Rock Podcast. And in this very full show, the last show of 2022, we're going to be hearing from none other than Cormac Neeson of The Answer, who have, over the last month, I'm sure you have seen, unveiled 2 new tracks from a brand new album. It is called Sundowners. It's going to be released on St. Patrick's Day in March. What other day could it be? And it could be already one of the albums of the year. Sounds that good. It's so good to see them back after 7 years. A welcome return for a band for whom it looks like it's going to be a great year indeed. They're doing some intimate gigs as well around that time. And if you've not seen the dates, check them out on their website, because I'm sure the more people that hear and listen to the released tracks, they're going to be heading out to get a ticket, and they will sell out quickly. That is not all, because also today, Dead Daisies just completed the last tour of the year. I sat down with Doug Aldridge and Glenn Hughes from the band to talk about the year that's just gone, that fabulous album In Radiance, and what the future holds. And as far as that's concerned, let's hope it is just more of the same, really. Live gigs, great albums. There's more. You thought we were going to conclude there, didn't you? No, we have another little bonus for you. Steve Longo, he came on the show a month ago talking about John Entwistle and this new album of rarities called Oxhumed. Now, he's back because we're going to look at a supergroup that very nearly happened. In fact, it did happen for a very short space of time. It involved, get this, Brian Johnson and Cliff Williams of AC/DC, and Steve was there on the drums. They were called Forklift. What a great name. Blue-collar rock band, Forklift. The life was brief, because as they were performing, news came through that AC/DC would return, and they ultimately went back in and made Black Ice. But Forklift did make some music. They did play some gigs. You may well have been lucky enough to see them. And Steve has kindly let us play the track that they recorded. So stay tuned for a piece of music with Brian Johnson, Cliff Williams, Steve there on the drums, and a band called Forklift that you'll probably have never heard before. Let's get back to the beginning, though. Back in 2006, from County Down in Northern Ireland, a new band emerged. They were called The Answer. Their debut album, Rise, shifted an unbelievable 125,000 copies. They were the best new band at the Classic Rock Awards. They were lauded by just about everybody. Jimmy Page and Joe Elliott were fans, and Paul Rodgers even stood on stage one night when the band were recording a bootleg live album in London, and he announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, The Answer, the best rock band since Free." Wow. What followed was tours with every A-list name that you can think of, including 118 dates with AC/DC on the Black Ice tour, the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, the list goes on and on. And they released 6 albums in 10 years before they stepped back to take stock of the situation and enjoy a well-earned break. It was perhaps, in their words, the best decision they ever made, because now they are back with what they believe to be the best album that they have ever recorded. And who are we to argue, because what we've seen and heard so far, well, it clearly backs up the claims. Now, Cormac joined me earlier on this week to talk about the album, to look back on this career that they have had so far. But to begin, here is the brand new single off the album. It's due early January. It is called Want You to Love Me. There we were then, sat around just another day in October, and out of nowhere appears this headline on an email, The Answer back after 7 years, with an album that captures the soul of the band. And yeah, I clicked on the link Blood Brothers. And it's almost like we're back in that period of the mid 2000s when you were the band that everybody was talking about. And that's followed by I Want You to Love Me. And all of a sudden, even after just 2 tracks that have been teased, people that I've been speaking to are saying, this is a big candidate for Album of the Year next year. And we've only heard 2 songs on it. So you must be on a real high.
Yeah, well, they're actually the only two good songs in the record, so we'll see what everybody thinks when it comes out. But no, yes, it's feeling good, Tim. And I think, to be honest, we could have released any 2 songs from the album, and it would give you a good solid reflection of the overriding energy of the record, because there's a lovely cohesion to it all. I mean, it's not to say that every song sounds like the next one, absolutely not, but um, it just feels like a band happy to be back in the room together, and working as a unified entity again, and like hopefully creating a body of work that has soulfulness and emotion, and helps people to feel good, even if it's for that, 50 minutes of that listening experience. It's a very groovy record, and I mean, I'm delighted with the reaction to the first couple of songs, but I'm hoping whenever people hear the full body of work, they'll like it even more.
What was the inspiration for the title of the album, Sundowners? I mean, it's a drink for one, nice drink.
Yeah.
Remy Martin, bit of Grand Marnier, orange and lemon juice, and it's also quite a famous movie as well from the very early '60s with Peter Ustinov and Robert Mitchum.
Yeah, so to be honest, like I was blissfully unaware of those different connotations of the name when I first came across it, which was kind of a short demo that Mickey, our bass player, sent through to my phone one afternoon. And like, again, to be perfectly honest, the demo itself didn't last. It didn't stick out the pace in the kind of the washing through of the various ideas that the band that we all throw into the rehearsal space. But the title did it kind of really stoked my imagination. And I was talking on an interview recently about how it came through just as I was about to go out for a run. I go out, I do a bit of running just to clear my head whenever I get the opportunity. And I to be honest, a lot of my lyrics and a lot of the ideas that I have kind of happen in that hour that I'm out in the fresh air, and the adrenaline's going and whatever else. But um I then went away and wrote a couple of verses and a chorus in my head based on the title without really paying any attention to the music. So by the time I came back in, I thought it might sit on top of the riff that Mickey had sent through, but it turned out it didn't. And I got in touch with Mickey saying, listen, um, if you don't mind, can we use the music? Can we use that riff for a different song? But can I still have that title to work with here? I think I've got a good lyric and got a bit of an idea for a bit of music that might sit under it, and that it all just went there. Then it was one of the songs that during COVID, myself and Mickey and the rest of the guys could kind of trade ideas via Zoom and via emails. Like Mickey would send me a riff, then I would create a lyric and have a few ideas, and then I'd send it back, and Mickey would add to that, and then it would maybe go to Paul, and Paul would do his thing with it, and that's the way it sounds. Very non uh, soulful at all, but it actually worked out quite well as a writing process to keep the whole process going over COVID,
Yeah,
and it was one of those songs that came together like that. But then on the record, the version that appears in the record, it kicks off the album, but also it was recorded totally live in the moment and in the studio in Middle Farm where we were recording the album. And um, it just like again, it's the longest track in the, but you can just feel Paul's playing on a nice kind of distorted dobro, and it just feels so rootsy, but yet so kind of I suppose current. I say current. I don't mean to say like, oh yeah, we're like the trendiest, radio oriented band that you're ever going to hear. I'm not saying that, but it's very current to where we are as a band, and it kind of it very much sets the tone for the whole record.
We're back. We had more fun writing and recording this than anything that we've ever done, and we believe it could be the best album we've ever recorded. Now that's a big shout, isn't it? Because you've produced some memorable albums in the past. What makes you think that this could be it? The pinnacle of your career so far, what you've been aiming at?
Listen, I know whenever, like, to say something like that does, I would imagine, to some people's ears sound quite naive, and I'm sure most artists and most bands say that about anything they put out. I'm aware of that, but
you've got to have confidence in what you're doing, which you obviously have, and you've got to have a belief in it, which you clearly have.
you do, but just like at every kind of twist and turn along the way in the creation of this album, it's felt right, and I suppose, most crucially, whenever we brought the songs into the studio, that next phase just really gelled the way we could never even have imagined it to gel. The songs got that extra 10 or 15% that they needed. You can go in, any band will tell you, you can go in with like watertight, great songs, but that's just not enough as a rock band or any kind of band that wants to wants their music to feel like it comes from deep down. You've gotta kind of, it's in the lap of the gods as to the magic that happens in the studio, and that the band, especially a band like us, we all need to be working together and bringing out the best in each other and the best in ourselves, and the vibe in the studio needs to be right. It needs to feel like we're having fun. It needs to feel like we're mirrors, and like all that, and add to the fact that we hadn't been in the studio together for 6 years. um Add all those ingredients into the batch, and like what came out the other side is just something that it feels so cohesive. Every
Yeah, yeah.
song's got its own identity, but it all feels like the one body of work. I think, maybe in the past, like, part of what we do is try and keep things interesting and shake things up, and we're not afraid to go left field when we need to, whenever like the creative process takes us there. But I think it is left field enough and fresh enough, but it's still like kind of like a very unified statement of the band's identity and where we stand right now. And it's like, above all, it's a feel good rock and roll
Yeah,
record,
yeah.
in a time whenever people need to find ways to feel good, I think.
That's
So,
very true. Do
um,
you know, I
yeah.
was with Glenn Hughes actually yesterday, and went to see him last night, and he was going on about this. Music has this power. It's what we need. It motivates. It brings people together. It makes you feel good. It can repair so many things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Glenn's been doing it a lot longer than I have, so he is speaking with very, very good authority there.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I think if people can feel, and I think people will feel off this album, the kind of empowerment that we got from making it. If people can tap into that even in a small way, then it is gonna have that effect. It is gonna get people grooving, and maybe if nothing else, provide an hour of escape from the daily grind. And that, I mean, that's what music has
Yeah,
always done for me. it takes me to a different place whenever I need to be there, you know, and yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, people can tap into that energy.
Blood Brothers, you've talked about. I mean, everybody's heard it. Was the first track. You said it's a very special track. Is this basically you talking and describing your relationship with each other?
Yeah, I suppose it is about it is about that. I think just the way that song came together was a real kind of a pivotal moment in the process for us. It felt like, yeah, okay, we're cooking now, you know. We'd been kind of we'd had a few writing sessions up to that point and had some good stuff that come out of it. A couple of songs like from the very first writing session when we all got back in a room together have made it onto the record, but Blood Brother, it was one of those moments whenever we're like, yeah, this feels like bang on right what we're here to do right now, you know. And yeah, it's contender for the first song that people were going to hear after 6 years of radio silence from the answer.
That's got a good point. The album's produced by Dan Weller. Now, you've always maintained that you like to have a new producer for every album. What was the process that you went through when you were looking for a new producer this time around? And how did you come to pick Dan Weller? And I have to say, obviously, again, from what we've heard so far, it looks like a very good marriage.
Yeah, so Dan originally was as it does be the case. You know, you talk to a bunch of producers whenever before you kind of make the commitment and embark on that next phase, because it's a big decision. It can make or break your album. It can make or break your career in some cases. So, like in days gone by, we would have flown to LA and talked to five or six guys who all, promised us the world, the moon, and the stars, and everything beyond. Um, or sat down in London and talked to a bunch of guys, and you know, that's the way it went. These days, as we are doing now, a Zoom call suffices. Uh, so. So a lot less traveling on the passport this time round, but we talked to a whole bunch of proper big name producers, but there was something about Dan, like um, Dan just seemed to understand what we were trying to do with the album. He clearly gone away and spent time listening, getting into the DNA of our previous records, and he made a few points that just really resonated with us, and he sent over a bunch of kind of, I suppose, kind of soundboard bands and songs that he felt were a good reference for the way this album had to go, and the both the songs and the textures within the production of the songs that he sent through, it just felt absolutely bang on the money, and still obviously we're getting in there. We don't really know him, we know he's made some great records, and we know he's a great musician himself, but literally from the first morning in Middle Farm, we sat down and we had a band meeting. We used to have a band meeting every morning after breakfast, in relation to whatever song we were doing that day, and it just uh, it just set everything off on the right track. We like like I've mentioned the word cohesion. It just all felt like it was part. We were all working as one, and Dan, one of his great strengths on this record was allowing things to get weird when they needed to get weird, in relation to production technique, in relation to what we were doing with the songs, because in many cases there's 11 tracks in the record, and I don't think any of them we could have in all confidence have called finished before we went into the studio. So there was this kind of space for an extra 10-15% that was was either, like I say, going to make or break those songs and make or break the record. And Dan just let us kind of have a bit of fun in there. And if a song needed slowed down, or the groove, or sped up, or the groove needed modified, we seem to just make the right decisions in those moments. This time round, and I've no doubt that it's under guidance and very
Mm.
watchful eyes that those decisions were the right ones. We feel, and the album is much stronger and much groovier as a consequence.
It's hard to believe that it is 7 years since Solace was released, which was a great album full of the unexpected. We weren't expecting what we got back then. But when you were discussing it back then, you were saying that, look, we weren't expanding the fan base. We weren't playing bigger gigs. It was time for us with this album to take the next step. And it was time for us to do, well, like many bands, look for something different, do something weird and wonderful. Now, the result was really impressive. I mean, it was a great album. Did the experiment work for you? So when you came to sit down to do this album, were there different directions that you could have gone? Could you have looked at building on what you did with Solace, or was it a decision to say, look, we've done the experiment. Now's the time to get back to basically doing what we know we do best, which is, quote, good time rock and roll?
Yeah, I don't think there's a simple answer to that question.
You could have come back and just
uh,
said, yes.
yeah, listen, I mean, Solace, yeah, we definitely, I think we experimented and we got ultra creative and really just challenged ourselves creatively at a time when we really did need to. And I think it surprised some people. I think in some cases, if you're a purist rock fan, it mightn't be your thing. If you're into, if you maybe I don't know, your tastes branch beyond those parameters. It was, and I think one of the great benefits of that record, and one of the reasons we did it in the first place, was it was kind of impossible from that point on. Like I know with this record, until people heard Blood Brother and are listening to the way we're talking about the album and stuff, I don't think people knew what kind of direction this record would take. Um, but I also think, yes, our our kind of guiding light for this album is we're gonna make a feel good rock and roll record. But Rise, our first album, was a feel good rock and roll record, and this record is not Rise.
Mhm.
Um, there is an expansiveness to the way we've approached making this record, and I think part of that expansion could only be possible having experienced the creation of a record like Solace. So I think we've found a really good balance with this record in relation to, staying true to our roots but keeping things interesting as well.
You described the decision after that to step back as a very tough decision to make. But if you look at what you'd accomplished in a decade, 6 studio albums, a couple of live albums, a live schedule, which was just dizzying to even look at it, working with AC/DC, Stones, Aerosmith, all of that, as well as your own headline tours. I mean, if you look at that now, are you amazed you got through that without severe burnout? Because, you know, you obviously deserve to take some time off and take a bit of a holiday.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely didn't take a holiday now. I think I'm still waiting for that. Um, but I think as far as frontline the answer activity, whenever we did need to step away, I think um, it wasn't that we were entirely burnt out. Um, like what we've done always relies on all four of us being in 100%, and really passionately pursuing what we do, whether it's writing a song or getting up on stage to play that song. And I think if we didn't step away, um, it just would have been what came after that would have just been a maybe just even a slightly diluted version of who the answer are, and that wouldn't have sat with us, and who knows what way it might have gone if we had have just kind of continued to grapple with what we were and where we were going. So I think having a bit of a clean break and it obviously gave me a chance to go and make a solo album, and it gave the guys opportunities to go and work on other projects and across different genres. I think, like I say, we really, whenever we got back together to make this album, I think we really felt the benefit of that clean break. We were coming into it with, I suppose, just a rejuvenated appreciation for who we are and what we do, and the fact that we get the opportunity to make another rock and roll album with guys that are, as I have three brothers, but the guys in the band are as close to that as anybody outside of, obviously immediate family are ever gonna get to, and it's funny how we just very like the transition back to, a fully working operating unit was was very was very easy, because it's kind of like it's kind of like muscle memory. You talk to a guitarist and has put the time in, spent the years perfecting their art. If they stop playing, Thunderstruck for 6 months, they're gonna pick up the guitar and they're still gonna know how to play Thunderstruck. Um, so it kind of felt like that on a human level. Whenever we got back into the room together, it was just, we kind of in many ways picked up exactly where we left off as friends and as working musicians and artists.
You achieved more success in that first 10 years than many ever do. When you look back now, you always had a great love of the US, be it New York or LA. When all that success started to come, and you were on these mega tours as well, did you ever consider that moving to the US would have assisted in helping the band take off in an even bigger way?
Not really. No. Like, anytime I go to America, still, I just feel like it's great to be in this movie for a month. Um, but I also appreciate getting back to Porridge whenever I land in
Oh,
Belfast.
yeah.
Um, and I think, again, like, you gotta stay true to who you are, and my gut had never kind of um started ringing alarm bells saying you gotta go and live in the States. I think, home has always been Belfast and Northern Ireland, and I think having that, if anything, having that base has helped kind of keep me grounded in the midst of all the craziness that was
You were
happening.
actually in New York back in the very early day, weren't you? Working as a blues singer when you got something called a letter from Paul about getting
Yeah,
you back into the band. So you were actually over there doing the rounds as a blues singer.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I was doing a bit of singing. I was also working in a pizza place, it must be said, as well,
Yeah,
you
I was
know.
going to say, was that a joke? Because I saw that you were working in a pizza parlor somewhere, so that is actually true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Flipping pizzas on the New Jersey boardwalk. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was like literally right after I finished school at 18. I went to America for like 4 months, and yeah, I got a letter. I also got home, and my dad told me that these two fellas had been ringing the house, like, to the point that it was getting really annoying. Um, and to be honest, I didn't really didn't I kind of thought at that point I'd had a bit of fun with bands in my mid-teens, and um, I was starting university in Belfast, and I thought
Did you
that was
do
kind of,
something called ethnomusicology?
yeah. So, like, And on the Monday, first day on the Monday morning, I was late into class. I probably had too much wine the night before, and there were two available seats in the lecture hall, and I went in and I sat down, kind of snuck in, made my apologies. And then another fella arrived in later, even later than me, and sat down in the other available seat right beside me. And kind of halfway through the lecture, he leaned over and whispered, uh, "Are you Cormac Neeson?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "I'm Paul. I'm one of the boys that's been ringing your dad's phone all summer." It's like, no way! Wow. Okay. I suppose I can't really say no to a rehearsal now, kind of thing, you know. And that was really that was the beginning of my relationship with the rest of the boys. So.
And you know, in such a short period of time, you go from that to being on stage, which is another great story. There you are, you're recording a bootleg album. Paul Rodgers is up on, so one of your all-time heroes, one of the greatest ever vocalists. And he sort of casually announces at the end, "Ladies and gentlemen, the answer, the best band since Free." I mean,
Yeah.
you must think, right, guys, can we have a moment here? Because I really do think we have just arrived. We have Jimmy Page on board. I've had a drink. We've had drinks with Jimmy Page. Joe Elliott's a fan. We've won an award at the Classic Rock Awards of the best new band. This is it. This is the moment. Takeoff is imminent.
Yeah, that's definitely up there with the list of moments right there. I mean, still, Paul, he's just he's just still the greatest singer that ever there was, I think, you know. And it really sharing a stage with him, and then we supported him and his band a few times. We did the Albert Hall and a couple of shows, and hearing him in the room singing, and you realize I like he genuinely is the greatest rock and blues singer that ever there was, you know. And to hear him say that about the band was a big moment for me. Now, you know, I still occasionally drag that one back from the depths and
Listen,
trying
why
to show
not?
off.
Oh, you know, why not? I mean, it would be, I would be re-editing that into a new package almost daily if it was me.
Yeah.
I do want to mention your solo album, White Feather, which again was just this completely unexpected body of work. You did some writing in Nashville, and what came out was this album, which was stuffed with so many influences: country, blues, Celtic, gospel, everything. How did you get the inspiration to put this together? Because there's such a variation of music, so many different styles. Your voice appears to be suited every single one of them. And I did think, actually, after listening to it, and I have to admit, I came across it months, maybe a year afterwards, so it wasn't on release. And I just thought, maybe this is your future, because it sounded like you'd found home.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I suppose I think the reason why there's so many influences in there is that it I really had no clear plan as to how that album was going to sound. I think I just wrote the songs that I needed to write, you know, and um, it was a great platform for me to I suppose get some stuff off my chest and reflect on some of the stuff that had happened in my own private life and my family life, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it just gave me a great opportunity to just I suppose go inwards, you know, and try and express a lot of stuff that was just floating around in my head and through the music. And like I say, I didn't really have I didn't have a very clear plan as to what that music was meant to sound like, but a lot of the songs were written, you know, guitar and vocal, and brought them into a studio in Nashville, and I was kind of very loosely producing, directing what way it was all meant to go, and thankfully, thankfully, the end result kind of made sense, you know, and I think even more importantly, it kind of did what I wanted it to do, which was kind of be my therapy whenever I kind of needed it most at that point, you know. And I mean, I've a whole body of solo work that I will release whenever the time's right, and I think it's going to be kind of maybe different again, you know. I like to think now that I have, I suppose, that avenue to to kind of experiment and have fun with other tangents and styles of music that maybe wouldn't fit on an answer record, or give me an opportunity to write lyrics that wouldn't sit comfortably on Sundowners, and it's I just as a I suppose as a working artist who values the songwriting process kind of almost above all the rest of it, I would say.
Yeah. This,
It's good to have
I
options
was
there.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know? I was going to say you were a fan of the Black Crows. I know that, and I remember Chris Robinson. Must be 20 years ago now when the Black Crows broke up. He out of nowhere appeared with this album called New World Mud.
I remember, yeah, I
Uh,
remember that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
great, really, yeah, really good album. I saw a review. I looked up a review in, I don't know whether it was an American paper or American magazine, and it described it as said, Cormac Neeson said, the front man of the band that should have achieved global recognition. What immediately comes to mind when you see a line like that? Do you nod your head and go, "Yeah, this is absolutely right. We should have had global recognition, and that is going to be the objective from now on in."
I mean, still the objective, obviously, but I am a great believer that you're exactly where you need to be. And like, yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of people shoulda, woulda, coulda done this, that, and the other. I think, you gotta deal in the present, and where the answer currently is a pretty great place, and an exciting place that 2023, when we release Sundowners in March and St. Paddy's Day. I'm doing a little jig in the background that you can't see. Um, it's about kind of pointing to the future, and if global domination follows, then great. If it doesn't, then we've still made a great record, and we'll see what the future holds. But I think just where we're at right now, like everybody feels like they're they've maybe been given another bite at it, for better or worse.
Hmm.
But I don't think we got into this record, and to be honest, I don't think we could have put any more into anything we've done up to this point. And sometimes it falls the way you want to, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's life.
Well, that's good actually, because the meaning of life. You've been quoted on this before. Somebody's asked you, "What is the meaning of life, Cormac?" Can you remember? Can you remember what you answered?
No, I don't. I don't think I want to
Oh
remember.
no, there's nothing embarrassing at all. It was the meaning of life: never running out of Lagavulin whiskey.
I still stand by that. I still stand by
And the quote to finish: the best decision you've ever made to step back for a few years. You've returned, you're rejuvenated, raring to go. The positive energy created by four brothers who missed each other has resulted in the album that we've been waiting to make all our lives. Fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's bang on. What this album's about, and like I say, it's just great. It's great to be back in the answer. It's great to be back doing what we do, and like, I listen. Let the album speak for itself, and hopefully
Brilliant.
people like it.